Devil's Pass. Even the name whispered trouble. It cut through the jagged peaks like a scar on the world, a place where the wind howled secrets and the sun cast long, distorted shadows. Old-timers swore gold lay hidden there, left behind by desperate bandits or maybe even cursed Spanish explorers. Stories circulated of men driven mad by the pass, of fortunes won and lives lost. The town of Redemption, nestled at the foot of the mountains, had heard those stories for generations. Most folks dismissed them as tall tales to scare children, but every now and then, someone would get bitten by the gold bug and head into Devil's Pass, dreaming of riches. Most never came back, and those who did were never quite the same. The pass had a way of changing a person. Then, one sweltering afternoon, he appeared. Not a ghost, not a legend, but a man. Or what was left of one. He stumbled out of the mouth of Devil's Pass like a broken doll thrown aside. Shirtless, his skin baked red by the sun and scratched raw by the unforgiving rocks. Barefoot, his feet swollen and bleeding. He was half dead, clinging to life by a thread. In his trembling hands, he clutched two things: a crumpled map, yellowed with age, and something far more disturbing, a severed human ear, leathery and dried, dangling from a piece of twine. He collapsed just inside the town limits, gasping for breath, his eyes wide with a terror that seemed to reach beyond the physical pain. Sheriff Brody was a man of order, a man of facts. He'd seen enough hardship in Redemption to be wary of stories, especially ones that walked in barefoot and bleeding. He knelt beside the stranger, his face grim. "Easy there, son," he said, his voice rough but not unkind. "What happened to you?" The sheriff's gaze flicked to the ear. He picked it up with a handkerchief, examining it closely. "And what's this?" he asked, his eyes narrowing. He didn't believe in curses or legends, but he believed in evidence. And this was definitely evidence of something bad. The man's story better be good, because right now, Sheriff Brody was leaning towards locking him up. "Treasure," the stranger rasped, his voice hoarse. "We were looking for treasure." He closed his eyes, and for a moment, Brody thought he'd passed out. But then he started talking again, his words tumbling out in a rush. "There were 5 of us. All gone now. Devil's Pass, it took them. It'll take me too, if I don't tell someone." His story began weeks ago, with a faded map bought from a shady dealer in a dusty town. It promised the location of the legendary lost Dutchman's gold, hidden somewhere deep within Devil's Pass. 5 eager souls, blinded by the lure of riches, had pooled their resources and set out, never suspecting the nightmare that awaited them. The flashback began with laughter and high hopes. The 5 treasure hunters, himself, a grizzled old prospector named Jebediah, a sharp-tongued historian named Clara, a strong and silent mountain man named Silas, and a cocky gambler named Ricky, were brimming with excitement as they stood at the entrance to Devil's Pass. They checked their supplies, patted the map, and joked about becoming millionaires. The first clue was hidden in plain sight, a series of symbols carved into a weathered rock face, overlooking a narrow canyon. Clara, with her knowledge of ancient languages, quickly deciphered the message. Where the shadow of the raven falls, the path reveals itself. It seemed simple enough, but it was the first step on a path that would lead them straight into hell. Following Clara's decipherment, they found a narrow, almost invisible path leading down into the canyon. But the initial excitement began to fade as the days wore on. The terrain was unforgiving, and the heat was relentless. Water became scarce, and tempers flared. Then, one morning, they discovered their water supply had been sabotaged. Someone had punctured the water skins, leaving them nearly empty. Accusations flew. Ricky blamed Jebediah, claiming the old man was trying to hoard the gold for himself. Jebediah, in turn, pointed the finger at Silas, muttering about the mountain man's mysterious past. Paranoia had taken root, poisoning their camaraderie. The treasure hunt was no longer a shared adventure. It was a competition, a desperate scramble for survival. They pressed on, deeper into Devil's Pass. The landscape grew more hostile with each passing mile. Jagged rocks clawed at their boots, and the sun beat down on them with merciless intensity. The air shimmered with heat, making it hard to breathe. The once vibrant colors of the desert faded into a monotonous gray and brown, reflecting the growing despair in their hearts. The past seemed to be testing them, pushing them to their breaking points. Whispers followed them on the wind, sounds that could have been coyotes or maybe something else entirely. The stranger said that the silence was worse, though. The oppressive, heavy silence that made you feel like you were the only person left in the world, and that the world was watching you, waiting for you to break. One night, huddled around a meager fire, Jebediah began to tell stories. Not the tall tales of barroom braggarts, but the hushed whispers of the Native Americans who once roamed these lands. He spoke of a powerful spirit that guarded the pass, a spirit that punished greed and ambition. He said the gold was cursed, stained with the blood of those who had sought it before. Clara scoffed, dismissing it as superstition. But even she seemed uneasy as Jebediah recounted the legend of a prospector who had found the gold, only to be driven mad by the spirit, eventually killing his partners and himself. The stranger, shivering despite the fire, admitted he hadn't believed it then. But now, looking back, he wondered if they had awakened something they couldn't control. The next morning, Silas was gone, vanished without a trace. His bedroll was empty, his rifle missing. One moment he was there, silent, watchful presence, and the next he was just gone. Panic flared. Had he deserted them, taking a share of the supplies? Had he been taken by wild animals? Or had something else taken him? Jebediah, his eyes wide with fear, whispered about the spirit of the past, claiming another victim. Clara, trying to maintain her composure, argued for a rational explanation. But the truth was, no one knew what had happened to Silas, and the mystery only deepened the sense of dread that had settled over them. The group was now 4, and the past was closing in. Back in Redemption, Sheriff Brody listened intently, his expression unreadable. He'd sent a deputy to check the stranger's story, to see if anyone remembered a group of 5 heading into Devil's Pass. The deputy had returned with confirmation. A shopkeeper recalled selling supplies to a group matching the description, and a stable owner remembered renting them horses. But something didn't quite add up. The shopkeeper remembered only 4 people, not 5. And the stable owner claimed they seemed more like gamblers than seasoned prospectors. Small details, perhaps, but enough to keep Brody's suspicions simmering. He needed more than just a story. He needed the truth, and he had a feeling the stranger was holding something back. The severed ear, for one. He hadn't explained that yet. In the stranger's tale, the remaining 4 pressed onward, following the increasingly cryptic clues on the map. The next clue led them to a hidden cave, its entrance concealed behind a waterfall that cascaded down a sheer cliff face. It was a dark and foreboding place, the air thick with the smell of damp earth, and something else, something ancient and unsettling. Ricky, ever the gambler, was eager to go in. Jebediah hesitated, muttering about disturbing the spirits. Clara, fueled by intellectual curiosity, insisted they had come too far to turn back. The stranger, his voice barely a whisper now, said he felt a sense of dread he couldn't explain, a feeling that they were about to cross a line from which there was no return. But the lure of the treasure was too strong. They ventured into the darkness. The cave was a labyrinth of twisting tunnels and echoing chambers. Strange symbols were etched into the walls, and the air grew colder with every step. They found booby traps, hidden pits, pressure plates that triggered rockfalls, and poison darts that shot from the shadows. It was clear someone had been here before, and they hadn't wanted visitors. Deeper inside, they found a large chamber, its floor covered in gold dust. In the center stood a stone altar, and on it rested a wooden chest, intricately carved and bound with iron. The treasure. Ricky whooped with delight, rushing forward. Jebediah held him back, pointing to a warning etched above the chest. Greed brings only death. But Ricky was too far gone, his eyes glazed over with avarice. He reached for the chest, and that's when everything went wrong. A deafening roar filled the chamber as the ground began to shake. Dust and debris rained down from the ceiling. Jebediah cried out, "The curse! It's real!" In the chaos, Ricky, still fixated on the chest, shoved Jebediah aside. Enraged, Jebediah retaliated, striking Ricky with the butt of his rifle. Clara screamed, tried to pull them apart. The stranger, frozen in fear, watched as the two men wrestled, their greed turning to violence. The struggle escalated, and in the confusion, Jebediah's rifle discharged. The bullet struck Ricky, and he collapsed, lifeless, onto the stone altar. The chamber fell silent, save for the dripping of water and the ragged breathing of the remaining three. The treasure had claimed its first victim. The fight had begun. The stranger paused, his breathing ragged. He looked directly at Sheriff Brody, his eyes filled with a haunted intensity. "That ear, it was Ricky's," he said, his voice barely audible. After he died, Jebediah went crazy. He started ranting about the curse, saying we had to appease the spirits. He wanted to offer a sacrifice. Clara, horrified, tried to reason with him, but Jebediah was beyond reason. He claimed Ricky's death wasn't enough, that they needed to give the spirit something more valuable. He turned to Clara, his eyes gleaming with madness. "Your knowledge," he said, his voice chillingly calm. "The spirits want your knowledge." The stranger said he knew then that he had to escape, or he'd be next. He didn't know what happened to Clara. He only knew he couldn't stay. He grabbed the map, hoping it would lead him out, and fled into the darkness. He didn't take any gold. He just wanted to survive. The chest was filled with more than just gold. There were ancient artifacts, jeweled daggers, and strange, unidentifiable objects that seemed to pulse with an inner light. The gold itself was unlike anything he'd ever seen, almost unnaturally pure and gleaming. It felt wrong, tainted, like it was never meant to be found. He knew, even then, that the treasure was a curse, not a blessing, and that he had to get away before it consumed him too. As he stumbled through the dark tunnels, he could have sworn he heard whispers, taunting voices echoing in the stone. He kept seeing shadows out of the corner of his eye, fleeting glimpses of figures that weren't there. He wasn't sure if it was the curse, the madness of Devil's Pass, or just his own fear playing tricks on him. But then he saw it, a faint, ethereal glow emanating from behind him, growing brighter with each step. He turned to look, and a wave of nausea washed over him. He couldn't describe what he saw, only that it was wrong, unnatural, a violation of everything he knew to be true. It was as if the cave itself was alive, pulsating with a malevolent energy. He ran, driven by a primal terror he had never known before. He had awakened something in that cave, and it was hunting him. He ran for days, barely stopping to eat or sleep. He followed the map blindly, his only goal to escape the clutches of Devil's Pass. The landscape became a blur, the sun a relentless tormentor. He lost his shirt, his shoes, his sanity. He was driven by pure instinct, a desperate animal fleeing a predator. He didn't know if Jebediah and Clara were still alive. He didn't know if the thing he had seen in the cave was real or a figment of his imagination. All he knew was that he had to get out, that he had to warn someone, that he had to stop others from making the same mistake. Devil's Pass didn't give up its secrets easily, and it certainly didn't forgive those who tried to steal its treasures. Sheriff Brody leaned back in his chair, his gaze fixed on the stranger. The story was wild, unbelievable, yet something about the man's desperation felt real. He decided to trust his gut. He'd seen enough liars to know one when he saw one, and this man, whatever his sins, was genuinely terrified. He picked up the phone and called Doc Miller. "Doc, I need you down at the jail. Got a man here needs tending to. Claims he stumbled out of Devil's Pass." As he hung up, his deputy walked in, holding a dusty, leather-bound journal. "Found this in the stranger's belongings, Sheriff. Looks like a diary." Brody took the journal, his curiosity piqued. Maybe this would shed some light on the truth, or at least a different version of it. Brody opened the diary, its pages filled with hurried, almost frantic handwriting. The first few entries described the initial excitement of the treasure hunt, mirroring the stranger's account. There were descriptions of the other team members, their personalities, their hopes, and their fears. Then, the tone began to shift. The entries became shorter, more fragmented. There were mentions of sabotage supplies, rising tensions, and the growing sense that they were being watched. Brody's eyes widened as he read an entry detailing Silas's disappearance, followed by the chilling words, "I think he's gone, taken by something. We're not alone out here." The diary corroborated the stranger's story, at least up to a point. But there were still gaps, unanswered questions. And the biggest one of all, what had driven the stranger to take Ricky's ear? Brody closed the diary, a decision forming in his mind. He didn't believe in curses, but he believed in justice. And something terrible had happened in Devil's Pass. He looked at the map, spread out on his desk. It was old, faded, but still legible. It showed a route deep into the heart of the mountains, a route that led to the hidden cave the stranger had described. He knew he had to go in. He had to see for himself what had happened to those people. Was the stranger a victim, a madman, or something else entirely? Was he driven by greed, by revenge, or by something far more sinister? The only way to find out was to follow the map, to confront the darkness of Devil's Pass, and to uncover the truth, no matter how horrifying it might be. He told his deputy to gather a search party. "We're going in," he said. First light. The morning dawned hot and unforgiving as Brody and his search party entered Devil's Pass. The landscape was even more desolate than he had imagined, a maze of jagged rocks and sun-baked earth. The air was thick with a heavy silence, broken only by the occasional cry of a hawk circling overhead. Following the map, they navigated the treacherous terrain, their progress slow and arduous. Brody couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, that the pass itself was resisting their intrusion. They found the waterfall, and behind it, the hidden cave entrance. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for what lay ahead. "All right," he said to his men. "Let's see what's inside." He stepped into the darkness, his hand resting on his holstered gun. The cave was just as the stranger had described, a treacherous labyrinth filled with booby traps and unsettling symbols. They navigated carefully, their flashlights cutting through the oppressive darkness. Finally, they reached the main chamber. The scene was gruesome. Ricky's body lay sprawled on the altar, just as the stranger had said. The treasure chest was open, its contents scattered across the floor. But Jebediah and Clara were nowhere to be found. Then Brody saw it. Scrawled on the wall in what appeared to be blood were the words, "The pass once more." A chill ran down his spine. This wasn't just a robbery gone wrong. This was something else, something darker, something supernatural. He ordered his men to search the cave thoroughly. He had a feeling they hadn't found everything yet. As Brody emerged from the cave, he saw him. Standing at the edge of the waterfall, silhouetted against the harsh sunlight, was the stranger. He looked different, though. His eyes were wild, his movements jerky, almost unnatural. He was holding something in his hand, something that gleamed in the sun. "You shouldn't have come here, Sheriff," the stranger said, his voice raspy and distorted. "This place, it changes you. It wants something from all of us." He raised his hand, revealing the object he was holding, a jeweled dagger from the treasure chest. "I understand now," he said, a strange smile spreading across his face. "I know what the past wants." Brody tensed, his hand instinctively moving to his gun. "Drop the dagger," he commanded, his voice firm. "It's over." But the stranger didn't listen. He lunged forward, his eyes burning with a terrifying intensity. Brody acted quickly, drawing his gun and firing a warning shot into the air. The sound echoed through the pass, startling the stranger, but not stopping him. He kept coming, his eyes fixed on Brody, the dagger raised high. Brody knew he had no choice. He fired again, this time aiming for the stranger's leg. The shot hit its mark, and the stranger stumbled, dropping the dagger. But even wounded, he didn't fall. He just stood there, swaying slightly, a look of bewilderment on his face. "It's too late, Sheriff," he whispered, blood trickling down his leg. "It's already inside me, inside all of us." He looked up at the sky, a strange peace settling over his features. Then, with a sigh, he collapsed, his body tumbling over the edge of the waterfall. Brody rushed to the edge, peering down. The stranger was gone, swallowed by Devil's Pass. Brody ordered his men to collect the gold and the artifact from the cave. They were placed in heavy sacks and hauled back to Redemption, where they were locked away in the town vault. Brody wasn't sure what to do with them. He knew he couldn't just keep them. They were tainted, cursed, a source of nothing but pain and death. He considered returning them to the cave, sealing it up, and leaving Devil's Pass to its secrets. But he knew that wouldn't be enough. Someone else would come along, drawn by the lure of riches, and the cycle would begin again. He decided to contact the authorities to let them decide the fate of the treasure. But deep down, he knew that the only way to truly stop the curse was to destroy it, to erase it from existence. But could he bring himself to destroy something so valuable, so ancient? The decision weighed heavily on his soul. Devil's Pass remained a place of shadows and whispers. The gold and artifacts were eventually taken away by government officials, disappearing into the vaults of some distant museum. Whether they brought misfortune to others, no one ever knew. Jebediah and Clara were never found. Some said they were still wandering the pass, lost to madness, forever searching for the gold. Others said the pass had claimed them, adding them to its long list of victims. Sheriff Brody never forgot what happened in Devil's Pass. He never forgot the terror in the stranger's eyes, the madness in Jebediah's words, the chilling message scrawled in blood. He became a changed man, haunted by the events, forever questioning the line between legend and reality. Devil's Pass remained on the map, a scar on the land, a reminder of the darkness that lies hidden in the hearts of men and in the forgotten corners of the world. And Redemption learned to leave it alone.